The following production is part of the Play Some Video Games podcast network.
Hello, one and all, and welcome to this week's edition of Play Some Video Games, the flagship show of the PSVG podcast network and the only gaming podcast that's forecasting this weekend to receive 1 to 6 inches of snow. It is your host, Kevin, and with me this week, as I don't want to say always, but as often, Mr. Playing Nintendo himself, Donnie. How you holding up, man?
Doing pretty good. We are officially in crunch time for Super Bowl. We have a countdown timer. So, we activate in 8 days. So, doesn't matter where I'm at. There's no more time. There's no more, it's not ready yet. There's none of that. All that goes out the window. You have 8 days. 8 days, or we go live regardless. You have 8 days. So, that means if it's not working, 8 days of working until it is working. Are
you excited to watch the Patriots play another Super Bowl?
To be honest with you, I've barely kept up. So I saw the Chiefs won, the Patriots won, right?
Yep.
Who else won? The Saints win? They're still in it, maybe?
Yeah, Saints are still in, and who the heck is the other team? Because Kansas City's playing the Patriots this weekend, and then it's Saints, and I don't know.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all, the Patriots. I mean, they have the legacy there. Although I don't think they've played up to that this year. I don't know.
No, they haven't. They just barely beat the Chiefs when they met earlier this year by a field goal, and that was it. So it wasn't a pretty thing. And plus, they're on the road; they're not at home, so that's always a disadvantage for the Pats. They don't play that.
It'd be funny though to watch them come stick it to Atlanta here in Atlanta. That'd be hilarious. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I'll be doing so much.
Yeah, you don't get to watch it anyway.
I have no idea who's winning. Don't care. Right. Here's what I want. I want them to run the ball a lot. I want the game to be fast. I want people to get in and get out.
Go home.
That's what we want. A real smooth in and out. Let's wrap it up and let's move on. I'm looking forward to some off time.
Absolutely. Well deserved too. But also with us, he's been silent because he's up in that great white north. The host, co-host, whatever you want to call it, Mr. Bored with Video Games himself, Kyle. How we doing, buddy?
I'm doing excellent. The question I have, Donnie, is what would your feelings be if the Browns were in the Super Bowl this year? Like, would you be thrilled? Would you be kind of like happy but a little bummed because you're there, but you're probably not going to be able to watch? Like, how would you feel?
I'd get a pass to go for sure. My boss knows. So when the Cavs won the championship, he called me and he was like, "So, are you leaving for Cleveland tonight?" And I was like, "I'm trying to get a flight." It was like 2 a.m. Like, he knows. He knew better. If the Browns are in Super Bowl, I'd quit my job. I mean, it would come down to that. I'd be like, all right, I'm going to do all the work we need to do. I'm going to get you going all the way up until tip off. When it comes time to tip, I'm going to the game. And you can either say yes, or you can find somebody else to do all the work because one of these two things are happening. But yeah, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. Never going to happen.
never gonna happen. Well, before we dive into the main parts of the show, we do have to take a quick time out and thank all the amazing Patreon producers we have over at patreon.com/PSVG, but especially our super special producers, Coach Mo, Edwin Callow himself, Dev, Tyus, myself, Chris M, Kyle as well, Joel Voss, aka Professor Switch himself, and Josh Bonesaw or Boney. Thank you guys for your patronage. We had a great response for our first PSVG DLC, which is a Patreon exclusive. This month's edition will be led by me. So unfortunately, Donnie set the bar way too high. So I will most likely be disappointing you all, but I encourage you to donate just $1 and you can hear it as well. If you're not sure what PSVG DLC is, it's our unplugged, unscripted, unprepared show. And I don't mean like OT. I mean like OT after dark, like Cinemax when it starts showing movies really, really late at night.
Yeah, it's rated R. Mm-hmm. And it has its own podcast feed too. So when you get to subscribe, you get that too. So you can still plug it into your phone. You don't have to listen to on the website.
You see, that's what everybody that PSVG loves is subscribing to yet another feed for something. That's their favorite pastime. But
hey,
no, this is
people
different.
Spoke and they
It's
wanted
true.
separate feeds.
This is true. And we have most of them. Most, not all. PSXP. But anyway, let's catch up on what we've been playing, fellas. It's been a little bit of time since we've done a proper show. I mean, shoot, it's been 3 weeks for me because we had the Game Awards last week and PSVG Radio the week before. So it's been a minute. Kyle, why don't you go first, man? What are you playing on your TV, as you would say, on board with video games?
As I would say on my television. So there's a lot of things I could talk about, and there's a lot of the old standbys that are still being played. Still playing a lot of Overwatch. Have been playing Iconoclasts on my PS Vita. So that was a PS Plus game back in December, and I was really looking for something just to kind of wind down my evenings with. And it was a game that was getting a lot of hype from some folks, and some folks were including it on their Game of the Year list for last year. So I said, all right, we're going to go ahead. We're going to give this Iconoclast a try. And it's a nice little 2D Metroidvania style, beautifully pixelated, awesome music action game. And it's just a good time. The story's really interesting. It's definitely focused on faith and religion and what that means for us. And it's not something you're typically going to see in that style of game with such a deep story that it's going for, but I'm really enjoying my time with that. So that's taken a bit of my time. But the other part,
How much does it cost?
I got it on PS Plus, so I have
no see another standard price. Okay.
I do not, sorry. But it is on Switch, I know. But, that's why I'm playing it on Vita, because I heart my Vita. But the game that's actually been taking most of my time, and I want to take you both back to a cold, snowy winter of 1995. And there's Kyle huddled in his parents' basement, wrapped in a blanket, Super Nintendo controller in hand.
Ma, the meatloaf!
That may happen. And I am falling deeply, deeply in love with this game called Chrono Trigger.
Oh my God. Yes, dude.
I always said that, hey, I'm a big JRPG fan. I've played a ton of JRPGs, but mostly I say that because Chrono Trigger is one of my favorite games of all time.
Sure.
And, I've still played RPGs and I've still played some JRPGs in recent years, but I have never gotten really into one. And then this last weekend, I booted up a game. And for the first time in as long as I can remember, I spent 10 hours in a game between 2 days.
Whoa.
And that game, my friends, is Dragon Quest 11.
Ooh,
and I am in deep. I am having those I am reminiscing back to 1995 and falling in love with Chrono Trigger, and I am deep into this game. And it is very much that JRPG that I have been looking for, that I've been trying to find, that really hits that nostalgia vibe for me, and this game has gotten me and hooked me significantly. The characters are great. The story is about as interesting as you'd expect it to be. The voice acting is fun. The game is gorgeous. It's an absolute stunner on PS4. The one drawback I have for this game, and it's kind of the one drawback I've always had about the Dragon Quest series, which I've dabbled in before, but I've never seriously played a ton of. And I know some people are going to say this is horrible to say, I'm not a fan of the music of this game.
Okay.
The soundtrack for this game drives me a bit batty, but I'm having so much fun that I can't stop playing it. I just want to keep playing it. When I'm at work, I'm thinking about getting back to play Dragon Quest 11. When I'm eating dinner, when I'm doing anything, I want to get back and play more of this game. So I was really excited about playing Resident Evil 2 this month. That might not happen now because I'm trying to be better about, if I get games, actually playing them and finishing them before I buy a new game. And there's some big hitters on the horizon. So I don't know, but Dragon Quest 11, it is sucking all of my time in a way. A game I can't say hasn't in a while, because obviously there's been some games like Spider-Man and God of War I absolutely fell in love with last year. But this is the first time a JRPG has really sucked me in a long time, and I could not be more thrilled about it.
What's weird is we're not even live right now. We're recording this ahead of time, and Callow just upped his Patreon support just now, just by you saying that. I don't know how he did it. Good on you, Callow. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, that's good to hear, man. That's crazy.
What about the music isn't grabbing you? Is it just repetitive, or is it just a style thing?
I think it's mostly a style thing, because at least in this game, the music is basically always very happy. And I don't want to spoil. I don't think a spoiler. In the first 2 minutes of the game, like the opening cinematic, there's a scene with a woman running with a baby, like in a little bassinet, running, being chased by people on horseback. Obviously, a dire situation. It's like storming out, and the music is like happy as all get out. Yes, exactly. And I'm like, no, this is not the mood of what is occurring right now. This is not fit. So that's more of what it is for me. It just every time, like, it's very happy. And like, it's not that the music is bad by any means. For me, it just doesn't quite fit the mood of what the game has been thus far. But like I said, it's not that it's bad music. I just don't think it fits very well with what I'm doing in the game.
I'm excited to play it. The last Dragon Quest game I played was 8 on 3DS. And it was fun, but it was just kind of like a more 3DS RPG. You know, it's like a 3DS game. So I'm excited to see it all big and grand in scale.
On your Switch.
On the Switch, yeah. waiting on that Switch version.
Oh, fair enough. So I've been playing a little bit of the old favorites. Still dabbling in Fortnite when I can. I've been uploading some of those clips now that people told me, like, hey, Kevin, you should really record some clips of when you play. So I've been doing that and having a little fun back and forth with Mr. Badbit, comparing highlight reels, if you will. I am, as I said in my Patreon post, revisiting 100 games bucket list, and my 2 on that poster I got for Christmas that I'm using this month is PUBG and Rocket League. So I have not booted up Rocket League yet, but I have revisited PUBG, and I will say, for all the crap I gave it before about being broken, it is better now. Still not perfect, but it is a lot better. So they are continuing to pump some life into that game, which is probably good considering you can play it on Gamepass now. So the player base has grown significantly on people who didn't have to pay for it, much like Fortnite has that advantage right now. Played for a couple hours last night, actually did some squad matches and had some victories there with my brother-in-law, which is a lot of fun. I think I'm much better at that game in a squad, whereas with Fortnite, I'm better solo. So still fun. Playing Game Pass released, was it last week or the week before, Donnie? Marvel vs. Capcom 3 came back on Game Pass. I booted that up because I absolutely loved that game back on PS3, I think is when I played that. And my kids actually also loved that game. That kind of what got them into Injustice later on. This was like the precursor to that. So had a lot of fun with that, brought back some nostalgia there. It's not really optimized or anything for Xbox One or anything like that, but it didn't really need to be. With the animation and stuff, it was pretty fluid. But the game that really has me right now comes as a bit of surprise for me, and it's thanks to you, Donnie. Actually, you purchased it, was Ghost Recon Wildlands. So I know you bought it with hopes to play it with some of the team and Q. I know you kind of had set up an agreement like, hey, if I buy this, will you play it with me? I'm not sure if you've been able to link up yet. I really like this game, and I've never really been a fan of the Tom Clancy. Actually, any of the Tom Clancy games. Splinter Cell's been okay. Like they just weren't games that ever grabbed me. But something about Ghost Recon, I really enjoyed the military aspect of it, kind of Black Ops type thing that you're doing here. You know, with all the gadgets, your drones, your night vision, your heat vision. You have to collect upgrades for your weapons. It's not like, hey, I just have this super awesome sniper rifle right off the bat. It's like, no, you have the sniper rifle. And the almost RPG like elements is, hey, you have to level up and find the equipment pieces to make your sniper rifle better, which is really cool. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. The story's really good. The only negative for me right now is the game seems absolutely massive, like Assassin's Creed level of massive. Like you're taking down the entire drug cartel here, and they're not joking. It's not like, hey, you take down these 5 people. No, it's like 30, 40 people you have to take down while covering this giant map with all side missions and stuff to do too. So I've taken down the first 2 main targets of the cartel, I think. So I'm having a lot of fun, but I'm just not sure if I would be able to beat it as much as I want to. I'm trying to be like Kyle, as he said, kind of tear through games, but like there's these other games that I know I could beat in a much more streamlined fashion. I'm like, hey, I'll do that and then go back to this in my downtime. So I'm hoping to do that, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. Ghost Recon Wildlands. I can't recommend it high enough right now.
I played a little bit of it solo, and I didn't enjoy it nearly as much playing it solo as I did when I played with Coach Mo and Nathan. Playing it in groups is fun, and I think that goes back to the experience I played on PlayStation 4 with Kyle and Dev. It's fun in groups because you can talk, and it like makes the driving around and the getting from point A to point B go by faster because you're hanging out, and that's really, for me, that's really what I kind of get out of the game. It's just kind of like sandbox shooter game. I wasn't digging the story nearly as much, but I also probably haven't got into it that much because of solo. I'm just like blowing stuff up and constantly running around and shooting everybody. And then eventually it's just kind of like, it's weird because I used to feel like this way with like some of the old Saints games. When you get into a sandbox like that big, you have all kinds of things to do. So you just kind of just stop doing anything. You just like, well, I'm going to go shoot more people, where there's no like progression. Now, what is cool about that RPG, unlocking system there is that when I played with Coach Mo, just to give a fun story, I didn't have anything unlocked because obviously I just started and enrolled a new character. So I get on the helicopter with Coach Mo and he goes flying up to the air, and he totally just dives out of the airplane because he thinks it's funny because I can't, because I don't have.
Oh, you don't have the parachute yet.
So what was hilarious is he jumps off. He's laughing. Nathan's like, I can't believe you let him do that. He's dying laughing. Everybody in chat is like, I can't believe you're doing this. I'm falling to the ground, and I totally land that helicopter and just walk away. It was just a complete like bitter ending for him. It totally lands all through through the trees and everything, lands on all fours, and I just get off the thing and then pick up the dirt bike and keep riding. He's like, man, I was like, I'm never getting on a helicopter with you again. And he tried for the rest of the stream. He's like, come on, I'll fly. He goes, no, we're not doing that. I'm not believing this anymore. Nope, not at all. So it was really funny because on the stream, it got to the point where Nathan and I are not even listening to Mo. He's like, all right, guys, let's go over here. Like me and Nathan get in the truck and just drive away. So it is fun. It's fun shenanigans. I'm glad I got it. I'm glad I didn't pay full price for it. Like, it was on sale. We got it for $15, and that's fun. It's a fun $15 like mess around, play with some physics, blow some stuff up game. So
yeah, I haven't been able to link up with anybody yet. I know Josh has been trying to play, but Josh typically can't get on until later at night when I'm normally not playing anymore. So it's been a little tough there. So I've been doing a lot solo. But you're right. The side missions are kind of where it takes away a little bit because there's just so many. But the actual story missions are far less frequent. But you need to do some of the side stuff in order to get the gear and the experience you need to then progress the story. But the story elements, when you get to those missions, I find really cool. And some of the people are just sinister and dark. So it's pretty cool. I'm having fun. But what are you playing, Donnie?
Well, I want to tell everybody that I played The Last of Us again. Now it's been like a week ago, so it's not current, but I finished Diablo and I kind of cleared off a lot of the things that I've been doing, kind of making room for the things that I'm about to bring in. And I still haven't got to Starlink yet. My son keeps playing Starlink, so I haven't got to Starlink yet, and it's kind of sitting there. I know one day I'm gonna boot that up and start playing it. But I playing the Messenger, playing Dragon Ball Z Fighters, like just playing things that I bought that I'm going through. So I was playing on PlayStation, and I was like, I've always wanted to do this, and I never did. So I booted up The Last of Us, and I got out a trophy guide, and I went and found all the things that I never found. So I've beaten The Last of Us. I collected every artifact. I got every joke. I did every conversation. I did all of it. And I got those trophies. None of that unlocks the platinum. You have to beat the game like 18 times to get the platinum. So, and I wasn't doing it for that. I wasn't doing it for the achievement of the trophies. It's really not what I was doing. It's just, I've always wanted to do it. Like, I love the game so much. It's one of my favorite, if not my favorite game that I've ever played. And for some odd reason, I've played, I think this is my 4th or 5th time going through it. And I've just never cared to like go through it all. So I got everything and read every note and like really just kind of canvassed the area and had a lot of fun, had a lot of blast.
I'm scared to do that. I still haven't, full disclosure, ever gone back to the game. I had such a memorable time with that. Like, and I absolutely loved that game. And you played it on PS3, didn't you? Yeah, and I'm afraid to go back and be like, play it again. Like, is it not going to seem as special to me? But obviously, like, it's not for you. I'm just afraid for me, I'm not going to remember it as fondly going back. And I do have it remastered. So the remastered version is an upgrade, but it shows its age now. We're so far away from then, and we've seen so many spectacular grand things like Far Cry and God of War. And it shows its age. Now it's funny, it crashed on me twice. I've never had that issue before. Like in anything that I've ever done. Like I've played the game, like I said, this is my 4th or 5th time through, and I've never had an issue. And it crashed on me twice. For some odd reason, it's happening where that was happening. But it shows its age. It just feels like a last gen game. Some of the AI and whatnot when you're playing around. This was an interesting one because this is the first time I really played it stealth. Like I really played this game like Dev's way. I went through entire levels where I didn't attack anybody. I never played that way. Never wanted to. But while I was kind of collecting everything, I was just like, let's change it up so it doesn't feel so boring. And I had a lot of fun, and I don't think I barely killed a clicker. Whereas like the first time I played this game, that's what I was thinking about. So in my mind, I was remembering the first time I played The Last of Us, and I played that game like almost in constant fear. Like I was scared of everything. Yeah. I was creeping around every corner. I played like a Resident Evil game. I was scared of every clicker. Oh my God, they're gonna find me, they're gonna kill me. And this time I was like, I could have made like Mad Libs of like me running around them. Like I could have set it to music, me having fun, just like sneaking around all the clickers and like I could have like stopped and made funny faces. It's funny they don't have like emotes or dances because I could have done that because
I was just hanging out. Like, it really felt, and I was playing it on normal. I've never tried to play it on like super hard.
No thanks.
Yeah, no thanks. I was there for the collectibles, not there for any of that. So, but it was fun. It was good to go back, and got me really, really excited for the upcoming one. Hopefully it's this year. I'm ready for it. And actually, I said this in a Discord. I really hope this is a game that, like Ocarina of Time, I hope this is a game that PlayStation like keeps going. I hope it keeps coming back. I would love to see another remastered version, a better version, a 4K version, a remake, maybe the next gen, they completely remake the game with brand new assets and everything like that. I think that game deserves that pedestal. Like, to me, in my mind, it's one of those games. Like Ocarina, people are all like, I've played Ocarina, it was on GameCube, it was on 64. You keep remaking Ocarina of Time as much as you want. Yeah, because that game is so special to me. I'll keep playing it. I'll keep buying it. And The Last of Us is kind of in that mode for me. So, like, the Shadow Colossus treatment, I would love to see, The Last of Us get that at some point down the line. And it doesn't have to be Naughty Dog. They give it to Blue Point or something. But yeah, I would love to see it.
Now, I have a bone to pick with you because I heard a rumor. So you talked about how you were tearing through games that you purchased that you hadn't been able to play yet. Now, I know one of those was Katamari Damacy. And from what I've heard...
I don't like that game at all.
Yeah, how dare you, sir?
I don't like that game at all. I played that game for about an hour and a half. That's about as much as I wanted to play it. And I was like, don't like this at all. And Jason and Caroline gave me all the gruff last week about how Caroline's always, you got to play it more. You got to play it more. And I'm like, look, it
doesn't change. I
don't like playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I likened it to Snake Pass. I mean, the very same feeling I played Snake Pass. Like, I get Snake Pass. I understand why people like it. I don't like moving the character and doing the things. So, yeah, I wish they would have given like us a modern control scheme. I feel that, I feel the exact same way about Killer 7, and I loved Killer 7 back in the day. I bought that on PC on Steam. I'm like, they didn't change the controls at all. It feels awful on a modern controller. This on rails hallway thing, it's terrible. Like, you can't release that. That's bad. So, anyway, I do have a story to tell. If I haven't already been telling one,
go for it.
I've been holding on this for a while because I wanted to give Kyle the pleasure of making fun of me first.
Oh wow!
So I've got good news. Well, not even good news. I've got news that's funny that everybody on the team can make fun of me about, and then I've got bad news. Which one do you want first, Kyle?
Let's do the bad news first, and then we'll do the news that's funny after.
The bad news is I sold my VR.
So, I'm not surprised.
We gave it another try. Like we were talking about in the last podcast. Kevin, was it 2 weeks ago? We're talking on the podcast, and we were talking
more
about
than that. Actually, it was before Christmas.
Oh, okay. So we were talking about let's give it some more time. And here's what VR like eventually became. It became the thing that my family wanted to show other people when they came over, and nobody wanted to play when we were here. Like, it would just sit there for odds and ends, and I, me, the way I am with my games and trades and whatnot. I look at GameStop's trading value. It's like $40. It's like nothing. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get stuck with this thing, and it's just gonna sit here in this corner, and it's got all these cords and all these controllers and the wands and everything. I was like, and I pleaded to my kids. I was like, look, if you guys don't start playing this thing semi-regularly, I'm gonna sell it. Like, we can't just have this thing sitting here all the time. And and so they played it like that day, and then like 2 weeks went by and they didn't touch it. So I was just like, I'm gonna sell it. So I did. I put it all up on eBay, and I got most of my money back out of it. So it was good. It was a really neat experiment. I'm glad I got to play it. I'm glad I got to experience it. Kyle, the focus tips that you gave me really helped a lot. Made everything like super sharp. Like, the picture greatly improved. I was really happy to play a lot of Moss that way. And Beat Saber's great, but ultimately for me, I just didn't feel like there was enough on the horizon that made me want to keep like this headset just sitting in my living room, because it's just sitting there. So like, to me, it started to feel like how people feel like with like the Rock Band guitars and the drum sets. People talk about that. They're like, I got all this stuff, and that's kind of how every time I kept singing, I was like, man, I gotta try to play this thing, and I gotta do something with it. You can't really hide it. Like, it doesn't fit in drawers or anything. It's weird. So that's the bad news. So
I mean, I'm not surprised.
if anybody wanted to make fun of me about that, like that's there. But I think what people want to make fun of me about is this. So I've been holding on this for a while now, since like Thanksgiving. So we found out like Thanksgiving. So this is before Christmas. So my daughter's 3DS was stolen. She took it to daycare, and it went missing. and she searched the car and she searched church and she went to the daycare and they put out a bolo on it and they put up flyers and asked all the kids and it's just gone. So we bought a Vita.
Yeah.
Oh no!
I have been playing Vita for the last few weeks now. I was actually playing it earlier today because I am playing Persona 4 Golden.
I actually saw you online the other day on your Vita, and I was like, I thought he got rid of it, but I was so tired that I was like, I must just be making this up. I don't remember.
So we were going to buy another 3DS, but to be honest with you, it was getting one of those things where I haven't touched my 3DS in forever.
Mm-hmm.
Jack barely touches it. We have all these Switches, and we have 2 Switches in the house. So it's just like nobody's playing it. So my daughter was so upset. She was crying and she felt bad because she's had her 3DS for years. And I was like, all right, so we can get you another 3DS. And like we went shopping and I showed her eBay and all that. And then she was like, well, what about that thing that we had? She didn't know what it was called. So like that thing that with the paper game. She loves Tearaway. It's like her favorite game. She beat Tearaway. I think she got me like a silver trophy on Tearaway. She played Tearaway for like 30 hours. She played the crap out of that game. And I was like, you mean the Vita? And she's like, yeah. Can I have one of those instead? Because we were looking at 3DSs and like getting her one of the good ones, not like a 2DS cheapo, was like $100. I got this. It's blue. It came with a 32 gigabyte card. It came with 3 games for $85. And it is in like perfect shape. And it's the new one, which I never had. It's like the slim like plastic model, and it's got the mini USB thing. It doesn't have any of that necessary stuff. So it was a good purchase for us. She's really excited. I got Persona 5 dancing game with one of my gift cards for Christmas. So I've been playing with that. So I've been kind of getting back into this Persona mood. So I started playing Persona 5 dancing game. And then I was like, man, I never finished Persona 5, the anime. I got through like 14 episodes, but I couldn't keep up with it because like they kept dropping them on Hulu. So then I started watching the anime, and I got through Persona 5, the animation. And then I was like, man, I should go back to play. And so I've been playing Persona 4 like on my breaks. It's been kind of like my my stress game, right? So I'm doing all this stuff at work, right? And I have no time that I really want to like invest into a new game. There's like something good about just picking up a game that you already know, you can just play. So I've been playing Hot Shots and Persona 4 Golden on my Vita, and yeah. And my daughter's been playing the Persona 4 dancing game, which I've had. And, it's great that, I have all this library to pull from. We've got God of War and we've got all the Vita games that you could want. So we just downloaded all that stuff to, and she's been playing it for the last month. And I've been playing it here then, and Jack's been playing it here or there. But I thought everybody would want to make fun of me.
Yep.
That I have a Vita, and I thought that I'd give Kyle first crack.
I don't want to make fun of you at all. I'm so proud. It makes me so happy. Like, I was having kind of a rough week, and now my week's great. This is wonderful, Donnie. I'm so proud of you.
Unfortunately, he just traded it in just now. He just got rid of it again.
I can't trade it. It's my
just
daughter.
sold it.
It's blue. It's hers. Like, so, but she's got something to play on the car trips now. So basically, the house setup is now that she's got a Vita, Jack's got a Switch, I've got a Switch. So we're kind of like all moved up to the next gen of stuff now. No, we're not. We still have 3DSs, but I'm pretty sure they're all about to find a drawer here somewhere real soon.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that. So, fellas, let's say we move on because we actually have some messages this time for the first time in a while. So let's pause and take a moment to check out the messages.
Message for you, sir.
First one comes from Grouchy Surge. No, we did not forget about you, Grouchy. You sent this in a while ago, but we haven't had a traditional show in a bit. So he asked us, what do we think about this? And he attached an article. This is a little bit old now, but we still want to address it. Slightly Mad Studios announced that they're working on the Mad Box. It will probably release in about 3 years and support up to 120 frames per second for virtual reality play. It will support most VR headsets, and those upcoming, and the specs will be equivalent to a very fast PC 2 years from now. So they're future-proofing this allegedly. We're in early talks with manufacturers of components. We can't say much more right now other than the designs that they kind of showed what is out there. They think exclusives are exclusionary, but given that we'll be shipping a cross-platform engine to all developers will be their choice. As of now, we have no plans to pay developers incentives to exclude other hardware vendors, aka they're not going to buy any exclusive titles for this device. They think the industry right now is a little too much of a monopoly or micro oligopoly. Basically, just they want to break the mold, I think, for cross-platform play and bring to what they are deeming the most powerful console, which I believe that's a trademarked saying from Microsoft at this point. But yeah, they're looking at releasing this. Do we think, guys, that this is going to be a legitimate competitor 2 years from now? And keep in mind, 2 years from now, we're probably already looking at the next generation of consoles at that point as well, competing with those head-to-head. What are your thoughts, Kyle?
Do I think it's going to be a legitimate competitor? No. Do I think it's probably going to be a really cool piece of tech that's super powerful? Absolutely. Do I hope it's successful? 100%. I just don't feel it seems that the market can only basically handle 3.
I would even say like 2.5, because we've never seen all 3 hit on all at the same
same level. Yeah,
one always gets the expense of the other, so even 3 is a bit much.
Right. So I mean, I hope it comes out. Maybe it's super niche. Maybe it, there's enough VR fans out there who want to drop money on something like this to make that happen in a more boutique idea than in a mass market idea. I hope it's successful. I don't know what it would take to get me to drop the money on this, though. I can't think of something that would make me go like, yeah, I'm going to pick this up.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. I don't think it's really anything that any of the Microsoft, Sony's, or Nintendo's are even going to blink twice about. To be honest, it's just going to be another piece of tech that comes out that will find its niche market, I'm sure, for a small period of time, like the Steam box and stuff like that has found a market, but ultimately it just proves to be something that people, while it may be cool, it's not something people were asking for. And I think that's the biggest problem, personally, for me. Donnie, you seem to kind of be on the same page as Kyle on this.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it with Steam box, we've seen it with Ouya. You can't break into this. It's not a hardware issue. It's not there. People can manufacture a great box. People do it all the time, every day. Like it's a platform issue. You're not buying a box. You're buying an ecosystem, and it's an ecosystem where you like to play. It's an ecosystem for online. It's an ecosystem for distribution. It's an ecosystem for marketing. All of that is there. The partnerships. You can't just build a console and make it powerful and say people are going to sell it. You're not going to be able to break it in. What about distribution? Where are you going to buy this? How are you going to sell it? Like who's going to support it? All of that grows into it, and that's just to even make a dent. The Xbox took a huge loss. They did that on purpose to make a dent, to gain a foothold. That was all future-proofing. I'm not believing this for a second. Nobody's going to take a loss on this for 5 years just to try and make a statement. Not to mention, this is the wrong time to be trying to push hardware. Hardware's phasing out. Hardware's an outdated thing. We're looking at streaming and cloud PCs and cloud processing. We're going to be doing this stuff on Roku boxes and built into TVs and smartphones. Like, the future of gaming, I think a lot of people realize it's on the verge of changing. So now's not the time to be talking about how you're going to make a really powerful box, because boxes are out.
Tis true. Thank you, Serge, for the question. Next one comes from Kaiju Guy over in the Discord. He says he was reading the latest issue of Game Informer and read the section on Game of the Year. With Game Informer, what they did is each team member selected their different choices for Game of the Year. He noticed that Nintendo didn't have a presence at all. By any staff member didn't list any Switch games in their top games of the year whatsoever. So while he realizes it may have been a slow year for Nintendo, there were still some great titles like Smash and Pokemon. Clearly, Switch is selling very well, but how long do you think it'll be till Nintendo's respected amongst all gaming societies? Most PSVG people might like Nintendo, but I've been in many circles where Sony and Microsoft are loved, but Nintendo is seen as a child system. Nintendo may have some weird choices, may have made some weird choices, but they're doing great things and now getting their game back. So I will say, first off, I think, as you said, a majority of people in PSVG do like Nintendo. I think a lot of us, it's not our favorite console, give or take, except the people in Nintendo Shack. I think everyone else kind of has like, oh, I love Nintendo, I love what they do, but they have the eyes open. It's tough for me. So looking at it, I think Pokemon did well. Clearly, it sold.
Have you reviewed this article?
Yeah,
I haven't. Is there any third-party or multi-platform games that are also on Switch that he's not counting? Is like a Starlink on there, or Diablo, or anything like that?
I don't think any of those were on there.
Yeah, I mean, Dead Cells is on there, Hollow Knight is on there, Yoku's Island Express is on there.
On Switch, and so did Hollow Knight. Like both of, I think actually Dead Cells sold best on Switch, I think.
And I don't want to I'm trying not to call people out, but because I listen to the Game Informer podcast, and I'm like, I don't think that's right. Like the second person on the list, their number 4 game of the year was Super Smash Brothers.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, but we can continue with the.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I can understand why Pokemon didn't make people's lists in a year where I think that, despite people saying like, "Oh, this past year wasn't as good as the year before," I think we had a great year as far as games are concerned, and we had some great ones as seen in our award show. I can understand why Pokemon's not on there, but Smash, I find, like you said, so thank you, Kyle, for contributing to that, because in my mind, like, it's got to be on somebody's list for one of the top games of the year, like hands down. It just is the way it is, the kind of nature of the beast, the amount of people we know that are playing it and playing it obsessively. Jason and Tom Servo, they're just exploiting and investigating every nook and cranny of that game. Like, that's clearly a lot of meat on that bone for people there too. Now, as far as Nintendo being respected among all gaming societies, I just don't think it's going to happen ever, to be honest, for me. I don't see, it's tough. I don't think Nintendo has that it's a child's console mentality anymore. I think in a lot of gamers, some still do, because they haven't really revisited the Switch. I don't think that's the issue anymore. I just think it's, people see it as, that's not going to be my primary console. That's my secondary console. That's the game I play on, like, on the go. It's good to have, but I'm still going to do most of my gaming on the Xbox or the PS4. And I think that's where it's going to be. And I think Nintendo's okay with that. I think they're fine being that third wheel in that relationship of you and your console gaming, being that third person in the mix. And that's why they do the great exclusives that they do that are just for them, because they know they don't have to compete with anybody else to get those sales. Like, those are guaranteed sales, must have games like Breath of the Wild, like, Super Smash Bros. Those are Mario Kart. Those are all must haves for any Switch owner. So they know they have that market built in. And I think they're okay with not being the leader in the industry, just as long as they have continued growth, which they have. And they keep that mind state there. I think good things will come, but I don't think they'll ever really be in that respected seat like they used to be back in the, SNES Genesis days, where they're like, oh, the Nintendo's the big bad. Like, that's not going to happen, I don't think, ever again. At least not in our lifetimes, I don't think. Donnie?
I think this is just a matter of perspective. This is just an echo chamber comment. Nintendo Switch is selling incredibly well. Their games sell incredibly well. So to say that, like, to paint with a broad brush, right? To paint with a broad stroke that people aren't taking them seriously. I think to better clarify, it's probably more like core enthusiast video gamers, that are on the bleeding edge, that want to play the grandest experience, probably look at them as not living up to that standard. But that's not the majority. That's not the market. The market shows, 10 million people bought Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. The market shows that a large majority of gamers out there are playing Nintendo consoles. So I think the sales have proven that they have a seat at the table, that they're a pillar of the industry for sure. And I think it's just that. I just think it's just, it's very easy. And I'm often catching myself doing the exact same thing, but it's very easy to listen to all these podcasts, Kind of Funny and IGN and GameSpot, and then start to come away with, a takeaway that this is how gamers think. This is how everyone thinks. In actuality, this is how like 2% of people that buy video games think. That's how small that market is. The amount of people that listen, the amount of people that listen to like Podcast Beyond, very, very small. Like, it's a big community, but in terms of the greater collective of people that are buying video games, it's insanely small. It's marginal at best. So to take any of that type of feedback from an article or even a bunch of articles and then try to play to an entire market of people that are buying things, it's just not fair.
All right, Kyle, your thoughts?
And I mean, I don't want to go too far down this, but I looked at I think Smash Brothers was on like 5 people's lists. Super Mario Party was on someone's. Pokemon was on someone's. Gray or however you say that game, GRIS. That's on people's lists. So like there are Switch.
By the way, you need to play that one.
I've heard it's really good. Into the Breach, which I know is on PC, but also
sounds good too. I'm playing that one too.
Which is only from a console perspective on Switch. So there are games that are definitely, I think, associated with Switch that are on those lists. I think the question for me is, if you're like, do you think Nintendo cares that they're Disney? In the games case, right? No. If you're Nintendo, I think you want to be Disney of movies, or do you want to be the Lionsgate and Annapurna of movies?
Yeah,
great high quality stuff that not a lot of people see. Or are you Disney, who's releasing Marvel movies, who's like, these are awesome, they're pretty darn good, and they're a ton of fun? What one do you want to be?
And I was gonna say, we had those statements from the president. It was a Furukawa 2 weeks ago, where he was talking to, and it was the Times or somebody. I forget where the source was, but he was saying like, we're not tied to consoles. Like, we're an entertainment company. That's how they view themselves. They're not a Switch company. They're not a this has to hit company. We have Mario. So like whatever we put Mario on will be just fine. We can make movies, we can make t-shirts, we can do mobile games, we can make our own console, we can do whatever we want because we have Mario and we have Yoshi, and they're more of a brand. So that's spot on, Kyle.
And I think too, I mean, if you just rewind a year, Breath of the Wild was crushing everything. So they're very capable of doing both things, and I think that they kind of knew what this year was going to be, and they leaned into having a lot of really good, really fun games. Maybe not the critical darlings, but still reviewed well, sold gangbusters. And I feel like the folks at Nintendo and most Nintendo fans are pretty happy right now.
Agreed. Next question comes in from good old Justin Picker, Jay Picky. What video game purchase do you regret most other than Amiibo? I think you took a dig at Amiibo there.
I know this one right off the top of my head.
I think you just talked about it earlier.
No.
Okay.
One of your recommendations. Man, I really hated that Jeopardy game. Now, the Wheel of Fortune was pretty good.
Okay.
Right? But Jeopardy was awful. Now, I know this probably doesn't count because it's not like a big game. He's probably looking for like a really big game that you bought that you didn't like. But I bought the Jeopardy game because we were all watching Jeopardy having fun. The problem with the Jeopardy game is that it's multiple choice.
Well, did you play it on family mode or did you play it in the regular?
Oh.
If you do it the regular, it gets rid of it. So you have to buzz in before you get the multiple choice
And
options.
here's the problem. Then the game becomes who can buzz in first. Because
Yeah,
you have 30% chance of getting, because they only give you 3 options.
Well, I yell at people if they don't buzz in and at least have an idea. Like I tell them flat out, I'm like, you didn't know that. Like, I call people out on that, so I make them wait.
But my wife just kept buzzing in earlier, and process relation would win, and it was just like, this is boring. This isn't fun. So
your wife's a jerk. I'm just saying right now.
I returned that game immediately. We did have fun with the Wheel of Fortune, but it was like that Snake Pass. What was that mini golf game that's on Switch that was terrible? Like Infinite.
Yeah.
That game wasn't really good. I've had a lot of those. I can't say that I've had a whole lot of like super like AAA big purchases that really like scorned me. Like I wasn't as into Red Dead as many people, but I still enjoyed like the bit that I played. I understood how good it was. It was, a visual spectacle. So like typically there's not a whole lot of games out there that I buy that I just hate. Usually they're like the smaller things that I take like a Snake Pass. I take a flyer on it because I hear about it on a podcast or something. I'm like, I don't like this at all. So
yeah,
stuff like that.
That's fair. I'll go, and I just want to say I don't have any regrets from buying Amiibo. I wish they did more, but I like my little Amiibo.
I just bought an Amiibo.
That's true, you did.
I got Corin. Finally,
I have no regrets there. I will say so. I'm taking a different approach other than you, Donnie. So like you kind of mentioned games that you weren't a big fan of. So my biggest regret I actually was a big fan of, but the problem was the staying power of said thing. And that's Nintendo Labo. Ooh. So while I love the experience, I love the engineering of it. I loved building them. The problem is I look at them and they're just sitting there now because the hype
thing all over again. He said this giant cardboard box sitting here. He's like, what am I going to do with this?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So now I'm like, so I actually just packed them up. I kept them all. I didn't throw them away. I didn't do anything like that. I kept them all. I packed them in a storage bin so they don't get damaged and they're still intact and everything like that. And I'll wait until my kids are like, hey, I want to play the Labo piano or the fishing thing and take it back out. But it was just such a great experience building them and sharing that as a family and then trying them out. But then what do you do after? There's just not a whole lot of applications for those things you built. You can use them in that one game and that's it. They're not like you can cross over and use them across multiple things. Like, yeah, the motorbike you can use in Mario Kart, but whatever. That was a terrible way to play Mario Kart, to be honest. But it was a great thing. But I think ultimately I regret that a little bit only because of, I paid full retail when it first came out. I think I got the Amazon discount, so I got the 10% off, whatever it was, 20% off, and that was it. But it was still over $60 for that Labo kit. So I kind of regret that one. Kyle?
So my regret is
Nintendo Switch.
No, it is
I'm
not.
just kidding.
It is Nintendo related though, and it has nothing to do with the quality of the product. It has everything to do with I know myself, and I knew exactly how this was going to go.
Oh, I know.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. But I did it anyway because I got caught up in the hype, and that's my SNES Classic. I have played that one weekend. And I knew exactly that's what was going to happen. I don't have it displayed anywhere because I don't do that kind of stuff typically. So it is sitting in the box next to my television. and I played it one weekend, and I knew that's exactly what was going to happen, and I did it and bought it anyway. So it's not disappointment in the product. It's not disappointment in what Nintendo delivered. It's disappointment in myself.
Oh, that's sad. Kyle's answer was himself. That's sad when you think about it. Oh, well, thanks, Justin. That was an interesting question. And the last one comes in from Lucas Rose, Heavy Metal Riff over in the Discord. Would you guys play an AO rated game if you knew it was a Game of the Year contender? And then if not, why wouldn't you play an AO game, adults only game rating?
I'm confused. Why would you only play it if it was a Game of the Year contender?
That is my question.
Like, I'd play it anyway. Like, if it was a good game, it doesn't have to be a Game of the Year contender. I was going to actually say that about Kaiju's question. You know, like, you don't necessarily, for Nintendo to be relevant, they don't necessarily need to have a Game of the Year contender. You know, that's a small sample size of games. But for this question, like, I don't need an adult only game to be a Game of the Year contender to play it. I'll play an adult only game if I just hear it's good, especially if the topic, if the narrative is at all appealing to me at all. So I got that Shinron Kagura game on my Vita here. Play that game from time to time.
But that's not AO though, is it? It's
close. If I told you some of the cutscenes that this game has, I mean, if it's not, I don't see how it's. But yeah, I mean, I'm all about it. I play tons of all the Suda games and chop people in half, and then, like there have been games that I've followed just because they were like so more mature, and then they got newsworthy just for that. Because I'm always interested in anybody kind of expanding, the horizon of what the experience. That's what gaming and movie. That's what media does. So I'm all for people like kind of pushing the boundaries on that. So it doesn't necessarily have to even be like a great game. It could just be, hey, this is worth playing. It could be a agree-like thing. Hey, it's a really cool experience, and it's very mature. I'm typically into those types of things. I like mature narratives, like the Life is Strange stuff. Like it's not like graphic porn or anything like that, but it definitely dives into things that you wouldn't like want kids just playing along with and things like that. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the tough thing. So if you look up a list of games that were rated AO, most of them weren't actually released at AO, and they were then edited down to an M so that they could release it.
Yeah.
The only ones I even recall personally that hit the market at AO was that BMX Triple X. Back in the day, it was on GameCube and I think PS2, and it's strictly like it was a Tony Hawk knockoff because it was a BMX racing game, bike racing game. But the problem is you could have completely nude women as the characters, which made absolutely zero sense, but they did it anyway. And then there was the return of Leisure Suit Larry when that came back.
I played that
early 2000s.
Yeah.
Those are the only two games I remember, and I didn't play either one, and I had zero desire to.
Thinking, like, wasn't Condemned? Was that?
No, Manhunt was, but they edited it. So it was released as M. It wasn't an AO when it came out. They released a PC version a couple years later that was AO, but it never hit console as AO. And when you think about it, thinking about the games that come out now and what we see, you don't see AO brought up for violence. It seems to be the nudity that would get you there. And for me,
it's hilarious because you can like play Devil May Cry and just like rip hearts out, play Mortal Kombat. You can do that to your heart's content.
Yep.
But boy, man, you show a boob. Absolutely not.
Right. Like Evil Within, like stuff like that. Like those are some gory games, but it's like, no, those are fine. You can chainsaw somebody half in Gears of War and it's fine. But
before you do so.
Exactly. So for me though, that's the thing is much like my TV and movie entertainment, I don't ever see the appeal of the understanding of nudity in movies. Like it very, very rarely contributes to the actual narrative of what's going on. And for me, I was like, if it doesn't have any purpose, like in BMX Triple X, like, hey, you could be a female character who's naked riding a bike. Well, why do you have that in the game? It doesn't make any sense. For me, I have that same logic there. And I know it's probably the opposite of Donnie, that sometimes that's the incentive for Donnie to play a game is like, hey, this beach stage.
No, I gotta tell you, I didn't realize that we had so few AO releases.
Yeah.
Because I don't pay attention to the maturity to their labels. I just buy the game. So
right.
I would think like anything that kind of like push the boundaries in that sense. But to be honest with you, with so few AO releases, I would probably play one if it just made it out. If an AO game got put on, I would probably play it for that reason. Like, I need to see what I'm missing out on.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, but if a game actually gets rated AO, it can't be sold in stores, correct?
Yeah. And I think it doesn't, like, I think maybe PlayStation, Nintendo, like, don't allow them to be distributed digitally either.
Right. So I think that's more
It can
Probably
be
the
sold in
reason.
stores because the ESRB is not an officially
Yeah, but I think the
like
company-
enforceable
I think,
thing.
like, Walmart and GameStop won't carry
Won't
it.
carry
Right,
them.
right. Toys R Us or Best Buy, I forget who it was. One of them sold BMX Triple X. I was working there at the time when it came out. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" So one of them did it at a point, but yeah, in most cases they're not sold when that hits. But
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so for me, I think that's the reason. Like, for it to be AO, most time it's because of nudity or sex, and for me, that doesn't really add anything to a video game because it doesn't have anything to do with the narrative or the gameplay or anything like that. And to my
But it
knowledge, at least,
could.
I guess it
It
could.
I wish it could. That'd be more interesting.
So for me, odds are, if there was one that was released, it wouldn't appeal to me anyway. So I probably wouldn't play it. That's just how I am. I don't know. I'm a bit prudish. So Kyle, your thoughts, because you've been a little quiet, other than poking the bear with me and Donnie a little bit here in this.
I think if it was, I am kind of probably somewhere between the both of you. I am all for, I don't know, people being as naked as they want to be or violence if it's purposeful and it's done for a specific reason. And I'm kind of the same.
Just
What's
them,
that?
You're not hurting anybody. Just give the people.
Oh, no, I'm just saying if for as far as it appealing to me, like,
I got you. Yeah.
I don't care. Like, I'm not against it. Like, if people want to have everyone naked in a game, that's totally fine. I don't care at all. But for me, as far as like, oh, is it going to pique my interest? It's going to, if it's something that is done in a unique way or pushes a narrative forward or something new and unique we haven't seen before, because that's kind of the way I am with movies too. I'm not a huge like violence for violence sake in movies, but if it's a movie that uses it in an interesting way or how they're doing it and is different rather than just, blowing people's up, I'm more interested in that. And I can stomach more when it's done from that perspective than I can when it's just like, we're going to be super gory, So I would definitely absolutely play one if it was a game that I was like, it wouldn't prevent me from playing one. If I was interested in the game and it happens to be AO, totally fine.
Right. I have a feeling that, like, from what we've seen historically speaking, any game that comes out as AO, that's the only appeal to even do that game is because it was so bad that it got an AO rating. That's the only reason like people were buying. Like, they're all crappy games. It was just like, hey, we're going to push the limit just to get this rating, but there's nothing,
So I was thinking,
redeeming.
Is it even possible to make an AO game that doesn't include nudity? Because I feel like that's what the label's for. Because I couldn't imagine, like, I've played some violent games. I can't imagine just a violent game being so violent it gets an AO rating. Because, like, where's that threshold?
Well,
So
Manhunt was. So, I mean, back then in the 90s and early 2000s, I think violence was a way to get that. But now I can't imagine it.
Yeah. So, I'm talking, like, on violence alone. So
I
it's
don't think it can be done now.
double standard. It's
Yeah.
basically just reserved for nudity.
Yeah.
Which is kind of absurd because we have, music and movies and everything else. It's kind of dumb.
Really, really brief story. So I used to work at a video rental store because, believe it or not, in the Midwest, we still have those. And
You still have them, or like you used to have them?
I still have them. Like, I still go to one regularly. So I used to work there, and the common question I get from parents all the time was, is this movie okay for my kid? And I always was like, I'm not going to answer.
Question.
Like, right. I'm like, how am I supposed to determine what's okay for your kid? And I always would start with, well, there's not a lot of violence, and that's where I would always start. And I would get cut off, and the parent would say, well, are there boobs in it?
Yeah.
And that was really what they wanted to know. They didn't care how violent it was. Are there boobs in it? Well,
Like 13 minutes in, he totally just rips the dude's esophagus out. But then 40 minutes in, she totally gets naked. Like, no, absolutely not. Turn it off.
Yeah. And that was pretty much the way those conversations always went every single time.
Well, it's conditioned here in America anyway. It's conditioned. Yeah, that's typically the case.
Yep, that's how it goes. So that wraps up all the messages there. Thank you, Bear, for contributing to the show. You can always let us know in Discord if you want us to address something, or tweet at us at PSVG on Twitter. But now, gentlemen, it's time to move on and check out the news of the week.
I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite news outlet on the Citadel.
So hopefully both of you saw this today, but the Division 2 dropped a story trailer earlier today as of when we're recording this that shows Washington, D.C. Overrun by religious fanatics, depraved fascists. It looked a lot like Rainbow Six meets The Purge almost. Publisher Ubisoft is saying the game's private beta also kicks off on February 7th, a little over a month before its March 15th launch. If you pre-order the game digitally or physically, you get access to that beta. I know some of the team and some of our listeners are very excited for the Division 2. Lobo and Kabowski, to name a few, are both excited for the Division 2 over Anthem, which some of us are more hyped about there too. But this trailer did look pretty cool. The game looks super polished. It looks good so far. And I dipped my toe in the original Division, and I would be interested in playing this, but I think just the scale of games we have coming out that are similar or along the same lines, like you can't really play all of them and actually play them. So for me, I'm holding off in the Division, and I'm going for Anthem just because it's something a little bit different. But very cool trailer and good news about the beta that everyone's kind of been wondering how far along is this game, because they've been pretty quiet about it recently up until today's announcement as far as showing gameplay or anything of that nature there too. So Donnie, did you check out the trailer at all?
Nope, not at all. I didn't even know it released. Man, I'm playing Anthem. I'm playing Resident Evil, and I'm playing Yoshi. So sorry, Division folks. We have other people for you, and we will get them on podcasts soon.
Kyle, are you interested or diving into the Division at all, you think, anytime soon?
I am definitely interested. Played the first one, enjoyed it. So haven't played it much in quite a while at this point, but definitely interested in it. I think my favorite thing about that whole trailer is if you watch, there's a part where they're kind of like shooting as they're walking forward, and there's a cute little frog that's hopping in front of them all, kind of like leading the charge. And I really dug that frog guy. So it kind of makes me a little more interested in the game. I hope I get to follow him around more and learn more about that frog story, because he seemed pretty bad.
Kyle always goes right for the positive, man.
He was just hopping along. He looked so like he was like, let's go do this, dudes. It was awesome.
Okay. I'm not going to argue. Fair enough. In other news, Microsoft continues just throwing Game Pass games at us like crazy. And they said that, at the beginning of the month, they announced some titles and made them available. And then they said, don't worry, there's more coming, guys. So it's not just the 3 we talked about. So they announced today, Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor headlines the new offerings for the rest of January in Game Pass. 2014 open world adventure also joins Saints Row the Third, the Lego Movie video game, and We Happy Few, all coming to Game Pass. So this month they already announced Absolver, Ark Survival Evolved, Just Cause 3, Life is Strange 2's first chapter. There's just a ton of stuff that Game Pass just continues to throw at us. And I wasn't a fan of Shadow of Mordor, so that really doesn't do anything for me. Saints Row the Third I absolutely loved, and I would time allotting. I would love to go back and revisit that one because I had a lot of fun with that. And I have not played the Lego Movie video game, and I'm always a sucker for those Lego games, so I'll try that one. And I think Donnie mentioned this on the upcoming State of the Xbox Empire podcast, that he was hoping We Happy Few would come, and guess what, it has. And I'm like you, I didn't want to pay for the game, but I do want to check it out. So Donnie, your thoughts?
Yeah, that was my thought. We were talking about Empire 2019 once, and that was one of my wants. This is the first thing I said. I really want We Happy Few to come to Game Pass because I want to play it. I want to try it. I want to see if it's any good. And I followed that one forever and was so hooked by the style of it that I wanted to play it. And then all the bad news and the reviews and the demos and the betas, I was like, oh, I'm not paying money for this. But I've been trying to tell all you guys, Game Pass is dope. As a system seller, Game Pass is amazing. And they keep doing it. And I'm totally bought into it. I love it. It's interesting because it's gotten to the point like We Happy Few where I don't buy games in hopes that they come to Game Pass. And I don't know if that's like a good thing or not. Like, how does that work in the end? I think eventually we're going to have like a Game Pass box. And if like it really takes off, we could like everything could go Game Pass.
Mm-hmm.
Every Nintendo could have Game Pass and Sony could have Game Pass. And you just buy boxes with passes to stuff, which I wouldn't be opposed to because it's simpler. And what I really like about Game Pass is you can try things. I like that. Games used to come out with everything in a demo. And you could play everything, you could sit down and not spend the time and you could play stuff and you could find things that you like. And that's what I like about Game Pass is I've tried more games than I've actually completed or played a lot of just because I'm messing around and dabbling. Oh, that's neat. That has a cool title art cover. What a cool thumbnail. I'm going to download this and see what it is.
Yep.
I do that all the time. And you can't do that like when you go through the store and it's not presented to you. Like there's no place for all that, and I like that. It's fun. It's cool. It's just like walking through Blockbuster in Kyle's neck of the woods where he still goes and checks out VHS tapes and you see a really cool box and you're like, I'm going to pick it up and read the back of it. whatever. It just looks cool. I don't know. I just like the variety. It's just neat. I don't know.
So as a Xbox enthusiast, Kyle,
Yeah.
Does any of these Game Pass offerings get you interested in trying some of these out and breaking yourself away from the PlayStation for a little bit?
Well, I mean, I already have Game Pass, and I've had it basically the entire time I've had my Xbox, so the last year. Here's what I have run into, or my problem with Game Pass, and it's not a problem with the service by any means. It's a problem of like Donnie's like, oh, this game looks cool, I'm going to try it out. I'm like, oh, I have 300 games in my backlog that I own. Like, I'll probably try one of those out first. So for
Just
me,
keep adding to the pile, man.
I know, right? Exactly.
Stuff. It's fine.
Yeah, so for me, I have it mostly because that's how I play the Xbox exclusives, is that way I don't buy them, I just play them through there, and like Shadow of Mordor I already have. I really have no interest in We Happy Few. Most of the games that people are like, oh, this game is awesome, like I already have Absolver. Like the games that people are like, this is awesome, I've already had, because I clearly buy way too many games. So maybe I'll just stop buying games now.
Did you try any of the games that launched into it? Like Mutineer Zero or Below or Ashen? Did you try any of those?
I have Ashen and Below downloaded, but I've not played them yet.
I think you might really like Below if you give it the time.
I think I might really like Below as well.
I'm not going to give it the time. I played it, and that is like an old school Zelda fan. I was like, no, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, so there are definitely games like in the service that I'm interested in. I think a lot of the problem just is there's just so darn many games to play that it makes it hard to, for better or for worse, it makes it hard to be like, even though obviously I'm paying monthly for it, it's like, oh, this game in my mind, it's like, oh, this game is free. Same with like games with Gold and PlayStation Plus. But I paid money for this other game, so I'm probably going to play this other game I paid money for. So yeah, it's a great service though. I think it's an easy reason to recommend Xbox to people. And if you're, especially if people are just jumping into console gaming, like it's kind of a no-brainer at this point.
It is interesting how these things make us like value games.
Yeah.
We were talking about that on Shaq a few weeks ago. Like it's very interesting, like how these companies, like we have all these things, we hear about these developers, we hear these horror stories. They work 400,000 hours a week and they barely make a dime and they make no money. And then it's like, we get these on these passes. We just like download them. We're like, oh, I might play it. Maybe.
Right.
And then we like yell at Nintendo because they value their software. And they're like, no, we're not putting Mario Odyssey on sale. Like everybody else can do that. No, this game is amazing. You're going to pay us at least $45 for it.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like how we all get conditioned to do different things. There should be like a research article about that or somewhere to explain it to us.
I think the thing it's really made me do is realize how interested I actually was in a game, because I'll be like, oh, I'm super interested. It came to Game Pass. I'm definitely going to download that and play it. And then, 8 months later, it's like, oh, this game is leaving Game Pass. And I'm like, well, I never played it. Like I realized that maybe I wasn't as interested in that game as I was at the time. That maybe if I didn't have the Game Pass option, I would have spent money on it, and then it just would have ended up on my backlog. But now I was like, well, maybe I wasn't as interested as I was. I had that FOMO. I wanted to get in when everyone else was getting in, but clearly I actually really didn't care all that much. So it's actually definitely helped save me money.
It just goes back to show that most people just play what they want to play. And maybe you venture out once or now, but most people just play what they want to play.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. Because I'm a Disney fan, I'm going to talk about this. I don't think it's a whole lot of meat here to talk about, but Japan is getting Kingdom Hearts themed hotel rooms at the Disney Ambassador Hotel at the Tokyo Disney Resort, starting January 30th, and they'll be available until the end of June. You can reserve these special Kingdom Hearts themes rooms, which come with special bed sheets, table, furniture, lampshades. It's all themed after Kingdom Hearts, tons of artwork on the wall. But the coolest part is your special room key comes in this fancy collector's box, and your room key is, that's right, everybody, it's a Keyblade. So you wave your Keyblade over the door, it unlocks just like the Disney Magic Bands are right now and everywhere else. So you can just, scan your wrist and it opens a door. And so you get them, you get 2 sets of those keys in special collector's boxes, and you're also given Kingdom Hearts postcards to take home as well. So if you're planning a trip to Tokyo Disney and you're a Kingdom Hearts fan, this is probably something I imagine it's going to be sold out very quickly, especially in Japan, because they love them some Kingdom Hearts, and I do as well. So I know Donnie's never experienced them. Kyle, you a fan at all?
I have played about the first 5 hours of the first Kingdom Hearts.
Sure.
My wife loves the series. She's pretty stoked for the third one, but yeah, nothing that I've ever really gotten into.
Fair enough. So for Valentine's Day, you need to book her a trip to Tokyo and reserve one of those rooms for her.
Are you paying for that for me?
No, that's what you Patreon for, right, guys? Patreon.com/PSVG. Last story we're going to cover tonight is kind of a big one that's been fluttering around the Discord a bit, and that's EA cancels the open world Star Wars games. Electronic Arts has canceled its open world Star Wars game, according to 3 people, and they've acknowledged it now publicly at this point. The game announced alongside the shutdown of Visceral Games back in 2017 has been in development at EA's office in Vancouver. So that studio normally handles publishing support for FIFA, Battlefront, has worked on this game since October 2017 when EA closed Visceral Games. Visceral was known previously for Dead Space, was developing the Star Wars game. That project codenamed Ragtag was a linear action adventure game directed by Uncharted director Amy Hennig. She obviously left, and all this other stuff has gone through, and we've been through this death spiral of Star Wars to go on. But in June 2018, EA announced that it expanded its Motive studio, previously a single office in Montreal, to multiple things to oversee this project, and just kept going. But it's all been scrapped at this point. And the only one we're getting now is the shorter experience done by Respawn, Jedi Fallen Order, which is currently scheduled for fall 2019. We haven't seen anything on this game, so it's probably a big question mark as to whether or not we even see this one coming. So EA said, yes, the larger game has been canceled, but Jedi Fallen Order is still happening, and they're working on another smaller type thing to come out likely late 2020. So it looks like they're trying to go to like almost an annual cycle of Star Wars games for that cash grab, much like the movies are doing, as opposed to giving a large scale thing there. So for me, I'm actually more interested in the smaller scale Star Wars project than I was the massive universe type games. I'm getting a little burnt out by these giant experience games that I cannot get through, that I'd love to, but I just cannot sit there and say I'm going to dedicate 100 plus hours to the same game in the same universe that after a while I just get burnt out from. I would rather have games like The Force Unleashed, which were okay games. They were fun. They were fun games to play through that you can get through, with my scheduling time, playing an hour or two here and there, you can get through in a couple weeks. Like, I enjoyed those, and I think those are worth it. So I'm not actually too mad about it, but I know those hardcore Star Wars fans are pretty upset. But hey, we're still getting Fallen Order from Respawn, and Respawn's done a good job with the Titanfall games. So I'm still staying hopeful for that, and maybe we'll see something on what this other project is this year's E3. Maybe they'll just say, hey, here's the release date for Fallen Order, and here's a sneak preview of what we're planning next, and kind of just keep the beak wet, if you will, for the next Star Wars game. So, Donnie, are you bummed at all about this, or is this just a meh?
It's just a disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, they're Star Wars. Like, how hard is this? Like, it's been done before. Like, how do you get the Star Wars license, and how do you not have like a Rogue Squadron in development?
Mm-hmm.
And then like you give who does EA, like BioWare, right? The Mass Effect folks, give them a Star Wars game. And then you've got who are the not Visceral because they closed, who are the other ones? The Titanfall folks, Respawn.
Respawn.
So you have Respawn, right? And you give them a game. And then you have the folks that do Battlefield, you give them a game. And then you just release a game every year for a decade, and you make tons and tons of money.
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, I hear you on the open world thing, because everything's open world, but everybody has like their own niche for these open world. Like, sure. I don't like Red Dead. Somebody doesn't like, somebody on the podcast didn't like Far Cry.
That's true.
Everybody has their own flavor. So that's what people want. What
sure.
people want is they want to live the Star Wars fantasy. They want to be fully engrossed in a world. How you screwed this up? What are their? How long have they had this license?
It's been a while.
2013.
Yeah,
5 years.
More than.
So they've had this thing for 5 or 6 years, and they haven't released a big open world adventure game in Star Wars.
They haven't released anything other than Battlefront 1 and 2, which were both messes.
Because that's what people want. And you can't say it's not. You can't say it's over a lack of money, because people would buy that game. EA is more than capable of making it. They're talking about and I mean, in all seriousness, EA gets a really bad rap. They're one of the best video game developers like in the world. They release tons of games. They make tons of money. And I don't know what all the issues are. I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, so I'm not following this on every end, but it's just a disaster. It's a bad idea. I could imagine if you gave this thing to any studio that like makes really fun games to play, I'm thinking like Sucker Punch or Insomniac or Team Ninja or any of these studios that have like a really good, like maybe like an action style gameplay, legacy. Like, who are the folks did Team Ninja do like Neo? Kyle, are those the same people?
Yeah. Yes.
Dude, if you just give them a lightsaber, like, look, to swap these folks out, make them Jedi's, like, go do thing. It's not that hard. It's Star Wars sells itself. This is back to the Nintendo thing. Dude, we're gonna put Mario in the box. You're gonna buy it. Like, it's Star Wars. This is what Star Wars does. Like, this is a complete utter fail. Like, this is bad.
Right. I'm trying to figure out, like, at what point does Disney interject and be like, hey, no, this isn't happening. I mean, you look at what, Sony did with Spider-Man, like Insomniac did with Spider-Man. Incredible. You're seeing, the game coming to Switch.
What if
everyone's excited for that?
Star Wars.
Right. I mean, you're looking at Square Enix is working on the Marvel Avengers game. Like, all this stuff is in the works for the MCU, which for a long time people were like, hey, we need Marvel games. And clearly Disney was thinking about what they wanted to invest in and what they wanted to get involved in a little more carefully. Perhaps because of what's happened with the EA agreement there, they're being more careful, but I wish they would do the same type of thing with their Star Wars property. Heck, they own Indiana Jones too. Who wouldn't love to see an Uncharted like Indiana Jones game? Like, that'd be incredible. Like, they could do that stuff, but it seems like Star Wars, which is, prints money. Let's be honest. It always has. How do you mess that up?
They should have smaller games going too. It shouldn't just be those developers. You should have like a don't nod narrative Star Wars game. You should have a little indie platformer, Dead Cells like Star Wars game.
Sure.
Like, just Star Wars stuff, right? You grab something that's a thing, you slap Star Wars on it, and it starts making money and makes Disney happy, makes Star Wars fans happy, and it keeps people coming, waiting for the big thing, right? And you keep teasing the big thing down the road. And what do we have? We have 2 Battlefield games that both had real issues.
Mm-hmm.
Whether PR or publicly or with the game, whatever you want to say, they had issues.
Yep.
And that's bad.
Kyle, how do they fix this?
So I'm going to come off probably sounding like an EA corporate apologist here.
No, it's video games are hard.
Video games are hard. And I have a lot of thoughts on this. And I do agree that whatever has happened, clearly some mismanagement has happened, right? But if you put yourself in EA's shoes or try to put yourself in EA's shoes, I feel like in a lot of ways, this probably seemed like a great idea to get the license. And then they realized, oh, crap, what are we going to do with this license?
Hang on a second. It's a really good idea for them to have the Madden license and the NFL license and the FIFA license. Like,
right.
They have licensed games and they print tons of money.
Sure. But they have specific studios that's what they do every single year and have for a really long time. Now you get this new license and suddenly, okay, Visceral or whatever studio, we need you to make a Star Wars game. So suddenly you're taking away whatever the studio wanted to do. Too bad. We need you to make a Star Wars game. So suddenly they're jerks because they're not letting the studios make what they want, right? Because they have to make a Star Wars game. And people keep throwing around. They're like, well, look at Insomniac Spider-Man. That game took 4 years to develop. Look at God of War. That game took 6 years to develop.
Absolutely.
So how many more games, realistically, like how many studios does EA could they have committed to working on this? And how many more games could we probably have at a quality level that we wouldn't have nailed them for if they released the game and it sucked from a quality perspective? Like, they were in a tough spot and probably weren't in a situation where they could deliver what everyone thought they could based on what their studio structure was.
So I'm not going to fight you on that. You're right there. Games take time. And if they came out on a bad level, you're right. You're fighting upscale because you have to deliver on Star Wars.
Right.
I can fight you there. I am going to push back a little bit on this. This is EA. This isn't a new company. It's not a startup. This isn't a company that hasn't hit big. This is one of the biggest companies in the world at making video games, and they have the best studios that do it, and they do it all the time. We release games every year and every other year and every 3 years and every 5 years.
Yep.
So they've had this, and they've had all these studios, and they've released 2 games or the same game, and they both had issues. That's not good enough.
Oh, I'm not saying it.
That's not good enough. I won't let them off the hook there. And while I guess you could say that we don't know, that nobody like the Titanfall folks didn't want to do Star Wars. I imagine that when you get the Star Wars license, if you have any sort of creative freedom, I imagine the developers are pretty stoked about that. Like the Battlefront campaign that we have was basically like a whole brand new thing. It's not like the Lego games. It's not like they were told to remake Rogue One, right? Like they were, like go make a Star Wars game.
Because of any fan base is super, super forgiving. Like the Star Wars fan base,
Sure.
If you don't do something exactly the way they want it, they're so forgiving about it.
But right now,
super forgiving about it.
Right now, they're starving. Dude, I'm telling you, I feel like Lego games have done better with Star Wars than EA has.
What I'm saying though is, as a developer, you're like, oh, how bad? Why wouldn't you want the Star Wars license? That's why I don't want it. Because no matter what I do, someone's probably going to be pissed about it and make a huge deal about it.
For, what the worst thing you could do is tease a big, huge Star Wars game
and not release it.
Cancel it in the final hour and then cancel its follow-up. You can't. So like Kevin, you were talking about like, we'll tease the next game. That's what got them in trouble. They got
that's true. That's
that. True. Go quiet, go dormant, and don't talk until you have a damn Star Wars game to show.
So what you're saying is, even if the game sucked, they should have released it. That would have fixed it.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying it's a matter of how many games. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, I'm just saying to sit there and tell them like they can't live up to standards, so we shouldn't try. Dude, no, because Star Wars has a history. We've seen it. Knights of the Old Republic. We've seen it. Rogue Squadron. These are games that people love. You just have to
Shadows of the Empire.
Good. You have to just make something good. Or what about the what's the one that I have on Gamepass that I've played? The 360 games.
Are you talking about the Force Unleashed?
Yeah. Those are fine.
Yeah, as I said, those are good games. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, just make a game. Like, I'm not saying it has to be a world beater. It doesn't have to be Marvel Spider-Man. Not everything has to be Game of the Year.
Yeah.
But to sit here and not release anything, I'm looking at it from the Disney level. Dude, if you're at Disney, you cannot be happy about this. What are you doing? We could have given this to Lego. They've had 5 games out and they've all sold. What are you doing?
It's true. It's. I mean, you're making jokes, but like those Lego games sold every single time. Were they great games? No. Were they okay games? Sure. Were they fun? Dude, absolutely. That's all it needed.
That's all I'm saying is from that aspect, like to sit there and go like, oh no, poor EA. They have a license that's like made to print money that a lot of developers would really like to have.
Sure.
Before Insomniac got Spider-Man, I bet Insomniac would have killed. They would have stepped over another studio's grave to get Star Wars because they would make a freaking awesome Star Wars game. That's all you got to have.
Sure. Like I said, I'm not saying that they haven't mishandled it. I'm not saying that at all. I just think that, look at, probably the person who's happiest.
We get to argue a little bit. I'm just going to say that.
Probably the studio that's happiest right now in all of this is Activision because they're like, people aren't talking about us for a minute.
Yeah, right.
But look at Destiny, okay? Taking it now, granted, you're like, well, Star Wars was pre-existing, yada yada yada. Sure, they had something to build off of there. But if you look at Destiny, we're how far into that contractual agreement that was supposed to be 4 games has only got to 2 in like 8 years with a team of like 700 people.
Yeah, but those 2 games have made billions of dollars and they've got all these expansions.
They made so much money that Activision said we don't want it anymore.
People are pretty happy with that product, all things considered. People are not happy with Battlefront.
But what I'm saying is, you're telling me that Destiny made so much money, Activision said we don't want it anymore.
Well, yeah, they're carrying a lot of debt and all that too. Like,
I think there's more to the story than what we're hearing, to be honest, on that one.
Yeah. There's definitely more to that. I don't want to break off too far into that, but I mean, your point's noted. EA is more than capable. They're more than capable.
Oh, absolutely, they are
most capable. I mean, Okay, so think about this, because I definitely think this is. I mean, it's not like it's like an EA this gen problem. And if it's not football or soccer, like they just haven't been killing it right now. But like if Disney had, instead of going with EA, imagine if Disney gave it to Ubisoft. Instead of Starlink, we would have got Starlink, right?
Rogue Squadron and Starlink.
And we'd have an open world Far Cry Star Wars, and we'd have a shooter Star Wars, and they would all be good. And we'd have like what's the fighting game that they have, right? With the what's it called? The Medal of Heroes or whatever. Kyle, you played it. What's the Ubisoft fighting game?
For Honor.
We'd have that in Star Wars, Jedi Fighters or whatever. Like we'd have 4 or 5 Star Wars games, and they'd be good. They may not be the world's great. We'd have an Assassin's Creed Star Wars game. Like they would have done something with it. So I don't think holding EA to that standard is a bad thing. I get what you're saying, but I mean, when you play at that level, when you become that big, when you own a conglomerate of studios with that type of track record, like, man, you gotta meet the bar. You gotta meet the bill.
It's true. Yeah, I'm looking at the top 25 selling games.
I see his eyes. It's just.
Well, I'm trying to read the top selling games this gen in the top 25, and the only ones EA has on it for as being as big as they are, they're all named FIFA or Madden. That's it.
Yeah,
and I mean they have a much bigger team in subdivisions than.
And those are great games, but yeah, right. They've definitely missed on something.
Like, and realistically, that you could just credit that to EA Sports, not EA. Like that's the problem. Is one subdivision of this conglomerate is killing it, and the others are just kind of mismanaging things or whatever, falling short. But
and it's okay to release a game that's not amazing. Like,
it doesn't need to be, like you said, it doesn't need to be a game of the year. Get a solid 75, 80, and it's good.
But release a game, get a game to market. Especially when, I mean, like they didn't just get the license for free. Like they had to pay for it. It's not like they're doing this on purpose. They want to make Star Wars games. They're just, they're not.
And how much money have they wasted in these games that they've developed and then just thrown away? Like
studios like Visceral working on a game for 3 or 4 years, just churning through money every month, Yeah. And it might be, I can't speculate. It could be like Project Creep. They could have just shot too high. And maybe they should refocus and like, how about let's get a game out,
right? Get something out to help fund the next thing
down, and let's get a game out in the next 2 years. Let's make something,
And hopefully that's what they're doing with these two experiences that they're talking about. Hopefully that's the direction that they're going in, and these both come out and they're both well received. They don't need to be, like you said, they don't need to be game of the year, but let's get something out that people are happy with, or at least happier than they are with Battlefront. So,
and on your note, I'm really excited about. I'm really excited for whatever Respawn does. I really like.
Oh yeah, sure.
I like Titanfall 2 so much that I just play whatever they do, and it was pretty neat. They have good mechanics.
And then EA will shut them down about a month before the game comes out.
So really quick, the final point that I think the Ubisoft comparison, while apt, I was checking some things. I was double checking. It looks like Ubisoft currently has 26 studios. EA has 15. 5 of those, I believe, are mobile studios, and 2 of them are dedicated 100% to sports. So they have basically 8 studios compared to 26 that Ubisoft has. So trying to be like, look at all the things Ubisoft could do. They also have 3 times the number of studios who could potentially.
And I know we won't know this now, but I'd be very interested in looking up the numbers of those studios, because I do know the only thing, I'm not saying you're wrong at all, but I do know that with Ubisoft they have a lot of subsidiary studios,
right? And some of these are for
like they have like 8 studios, but they're all working on one game,
right?
And maybe together they equal like 200. I would like to just know apples and oranges, but all I was saying is if you gave it to a different company, I think the expectations would be higher, and I actually think the product would be higher. That was the only point I was trying to make.
Right, because you got to remember, Ubisoft was almost bought up by Vivendi, so they can't be that big that they shadow EA in those regards. I think while quantity, yes, but I think maybe the staffing levels aren't quite the same there. But it is what it is. We'll find out eventually someday. Maybe we'll get those games coming out. But we've babbled on for more than our allotted time.
Hang in there, Star Wars fans.
Yes, hang in. Maybe someday. And if not, I'm sure you can go play those ones on Game Pass for free.
I looked it up and they said the license was 10 years. They have like a 10-year agreement. Do we know if there's going to be like because I haven't been following the rumors. I'm working. I've been disconnected. Do we know if there's like any rumors, any buzz that they're going to like pull a Bungie and split this off early? Do they have that option?
Disney won't say. Disney kind of keeps all their stuff hush, so they probably won't say. I imagine there's got to be some sort of clause in there where either EA has to put out X amount of games, and if they don't by the end of the agreement, they owe Disney money back. There might be something like that. Maybe that's why Disney's not pulling it, because they're like, well, at this point, we'll just ride it out and let them screw it up and get money back. Maybe that's the plan. But I mean, there's got to be something, because in my mind, they would have already pulled it at this point.
Like,
with the success of the Marvel stuff they're doing, I would say by now they should have
pulled
the plug.
Business deals work. Like, how do you get a license? You just give them like a huge sum of money. You're like, here's a truckload of money, and now we can make NFL stuff. Or is it like a ratio agreement? Like, if you give us this, we'll give you 60% of the revenue or anything like that.
I'm sure there's got to be some dollar, like you got to drop off a sack of cash to get started and say, okay, and you get a share of what's sold.
It's already been paid. Maybe they're like, dude, do whatever you want. Where do you got your money? They pull a machine, like, where do you got your money, dude?
That's possible. But all right, fellas, it's time to call it a night. So Kyle, where can people find you, and what else do you work on?
So you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, all those places at Cycocross, CYCOCROSS. You can also find me on Board with Video Games at Board with VG on Twitter. And on January 26th from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m., we are doing a Board with Video Games / Xbox Empire game night, playing some Halo 5s over on the Xbox. So we'd love for you to join us January 26th, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Central Time. Let's play some Halo. What's that?
What about that Patreon giveaway?
Oh, Patreon giveaway as well. So we're giving away a copy of the wonderful board game Santorini, which is a nice abstract family strategy game for 2 to 4 players. If you are a patron by January 22nd, you are entered in the drawing to win a wonderful copy of Santorini, and I will be winner will be announced on January 24th, and I will ship it to you promptly after that.
It's good stuff.
There you have it. And I'll be going on assignment for Board with Video Games in February.
Yeah, you will.
So yeah, I'm sure Josh is talking about that soon. So I'm not gonna leak that out, but we're going on a little road trip together. You can find me over on Twitter at PSVG Kevin. Follow the show at PSVG. Hit the website psvg.blog. We mentioned patreon.com/PSVG. Donnie, what about you, sir? Where can people find you? And I think you have some Shaq announcement as far as a shakeup in release schedule.
Yeah, so I was just about to say, you can find me on Shaq maybe next week. I'm going to really try to get in next week because I really want to get my hands on No More Heroes and Travis Strikes Again. I want to talk about it. So I'm going to try to make Shaq next week. But at my work, I'm kind of going into the busy season, so I might be going away for a couple of weeks. You may not hear from me. And then, but Shaq still records on Thursday nights over on Twitch, twitch.tv/PSVG. The video goes live. The raw video goes live on YouTube Friday mornings. Our podcast does not release now until Saturdays. So releasing our podcast Saturday mornings gives me an extra day to get all the editing in, so I don't have to stay up all night to do it. But like I said, maybe I make next week's, but definitely like the week after and probably the week after that, I'm not going to be there. So you may hear some new voices, but definitely Jason and Caroline, they've got it. They can man the house, and go follow them. Go watch them live because we do Shaq live. It's a lot of fun. Come hang out in the chat. Come talk to us. Come ask questions. We'd love to see you.
All right, everybody. And as always, we like to ask that you never stop gaming.
This has been a PSVG production. Any music, sound effects, or the like is owned by their respective copyright holders. No infringement is intended. The views expressed in this production are those of the individual contributor and may not necessarily reflect PSVG. This production may not be repurposed, reused, or redistributed without the express written consent of PSVG. PSVG is powered by patrons at patreon.com/PSVG. Become a patron to get special perks, including access to exclusive content.